When you play the Game of Thrones, you
Subscribe and like.
or you die. There is no middle ground.
Alright, hello YouTube, and welcome back to the Grease Goblins YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be entering back into the world of Westeros. Finally, House of the Dragon has come out, the first episode anyway, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about really the episode, my thoughts on it, explaining kind of what the episode was setting up, and certain scenes, going through most of the episode and talking about it. So, before we begin into the video, if you guys like to like, subscribe, and comment for more of this type of content, please do. We're going to be doing a stream after every single episode, giving you guys my initial reactions and talking to you guys on what your thoughts were. I did that yesterday, so that was a good 50-minute stream. If you guys wanted to rewatch that, that was my first initial reactions to it. And this one's going to be more of kind of a put together, kind of thinking on it a bit more, reflecting on it, and giving you my general thoughts and talking about what I liked, what I thought was okay, what I was not sure about, and all of that. Also, we'll be doing previews for every single episode, probably on Fridays or Saturdays before the episodes drop, but let's get into it. So, first things first, let's talk about what I really liked in this episode. So the things that I liked about this episode is it laid the groundwork for a lot of our major characters really nicely. Where there's some characters that I want to talk about in the okay to didn't like section of this video that I don't think got a lot of time to develop. Certain characters like Daemon, Viserys, Rhaenyra, Alicent, Otto, I think they all got enough time to be really well developed. And I think the highlight of the episode was Daemon, because he's a very complex character. And I like that with Fire and Blood, we don't exactly get to see inside these characters' heads. We don't really know who they are. We hear about them from other people, so we kind of never really know who they are privately, right? So a character like Daemon is a character in the books that's described as very cocky, as kind of an asshole type character, and that's kind of what he is on the outside in the show. But we get a lot more time with him where we get two scenes where he seems very unsure of himself and what's going on. Even the scene that leads to him uttering the phrase, the air for a day, which gets him in trouble. It seems not out of a place of intent, really. It seems out of a place like his men wanted to speech, and he might have been a bit drunk at this point. So he seems like a very human character where we can kind of see where he's coming from. I think another character that did a really great job of in episode 1 was King Viserys. Viserys is very human, right? He seems like a very human character. We can see a lot of his faults and a lot of his mistakes, and I think something that this episode is really well, that's done much better than Fire and Blood, was the relationship between Viserys and his wife. In the books, we don't really get anything there, but they really do put an emphasis on episode 1 of establishing who his wife is and making that emotional impact of losing his wife and child a bit stronger. I know for some people it didn't work. For me, it really worked. I liked it. It kind of gave me that feeling of Game of Thrones once again, where we're not really scared to kind of show you the grittiness of the world and the realism of said world. Now, getting into kind of our main character, I would say, being Rhaenyra, I think did a great job with her. I think they evolved her character from the books, I guess the book, I don't know why I keep saying the books, but the book, where she's kind of this character that's not, she's kind of reminds me of Arya. I said this a lot in the stream yesterday. Arya and Sansa remind me a lot of Alicent and Rhaenyra, where Alicent's very much the daughter trying to please her father, is the very kind of politically correct person where she knows exactly what she's supposed to be doing. She dresses really nice. She's always on time. Rhaenyra is kind of the opposite. Rhaenyra prefers, going back on dragon riding and stuff like that. And she's late to meetings. She preferences seeing her mother over being at the council meeting on time. She's a character that reminds me kind of Arya. And something that I really love that they did with Rhaenyra's character as a whole is that Rhaenyra is this character that's kind of not supposed to be the person on the throne, right? Where we don't really get that in the book at much at all. When she's brought up, it kind of seems like she's being groomed to rule the entire time almost. We get to see how Rhaenyra and Viserys' relationship is kind of torn a little, because Viserys is always wanting a male heir, and Rhaenyra is kind of pushed to the side quite a bit, like a lot of women are in this society, something that I'm going to talk about a little bit later on the okay to bad side when it comes to another character that I just don't think got enough time in episode 1. But Rhaenyra, to me, I love that her dynamic is the way it is, where she's kind of put into this role by the end of the episode of, you are now the heir, you are going to become queen, you need to take on more responsibility, take this seriously, and all of that stuff going on. Other things I really liked about this episode, again, things that carry over from Game of Thrones. Cinematography was fantastic. Costume design was fantastic. Everything visually in this episode looked really good. There was a lot of really awesome camera shots, whether that be with the jousting tournament with Daemon and Kristen Cole and Otto Hightower's son. A lot of great shots in that scene. A lot of great ideas of putting Viserys' wife and her kind of struggles with birthing with Daemon on the joust tournament at the same time. So showing the two elements that are going to be talked about a lot, where women are supposed to be this character, they're only there to, you know, birth children or whatever, and kind of going against that, and then having the opposite side where the men are supposed to be the ones that are the fighters and stuff like that. So I think that was a really good parallel and something that I think is interesting that we're going to see more of in the season. Other things I liked, I think the music was really good. The music is enough to where it's a callback to Game of Thrones. It has a lot of the similar music, but maybe remixed a little, but then also in adding their own flavors of music and stuff like that. So I thought all of those elements were very good. I thought Daemon and Rhaenyra's scenes together were fantastic in this episode. It really makes me feel like Daemon actually does care about Rhaenyra, where he's trying to be a good uncle, trying to look out for her and help his family. Where another thing that I think is interesting is we see that Viserys kind of calls out Daemon for not being with his family in such a hard time. And it's something that's interesting because Daemon reminds me a lot of how I deal with a lot of heartbreak or problems, where I kind of go off by myself and kind of worry about those things and try to deal with my own things alone. Where Daemon very much does this, but he takes it to a different effect, where he's kind of with his men, kind of with his friends, trying to, you know, drink or all that in a brothel. And I think it's an interesting way, because Daemon is definitely the most human character in the show, where you kind of see how he has flaws and he's very human, right? And we're going to get into a lot of that with other characters like the Hightowers. But I think a lot of the characterization, they did a very good job. And casting wise, fantastic. I have no problems with any of the casting so far. I think they did a really good job in that aspect as well. So that is a lot of kind of the good that I wanted to talk about. This episode was very much about building up the story, building up the characters, showing what the story is going to be about, giving a lot of our main characters this strong foundation where they don't have to worry so much about building some of those characters, and can focus on other characters in the future episodes. Like we're going to see Kristen Cole in next episode, probably quite a bit. We have other characters like Laenor and Velaryon we're going to have to focus on. Corlys and Rhaenys didn't get a lot of time in this episode, so we're going to have to focus on them as well. So some things that I was kind of meh about, or that I didn't really like, I thought the cat's paw dagger at the end of the episode and the inclusion of this is kind of the key to the White Walkers plot, and Aegon had this dream. I know it's kind of been confirmed by George that that was a thing, but it felt very forced. And I saw that in the stream chat, a lot of people agreed with me on this. The whole idea felt very forced to kind of be a callback to Game of Thrones and season 8 specifically, and it just felt very odd to me. I don't know if how you guys felt about it. A lot of you guys commented after the stream that it's a weird thing, that it's going to be interesting to see how they pay it off, because it's going to be interesting if this information is given to Rhaenyra. Does it die with Rhaenyra? Does Rhaenyra never passes on? Because it's odd when you look at the focus where the Night's Watch really declines. You know, like the Night's Watch does not get stronger at these points when we get this knowledge, which would be very odd if this is a big topic for the Targaryen dynasty type thing. So I'm going to be interested to see how that ends up working out, but I was very meh on that. I didn't think that was a good idea for me. There were certain scenes with Daemon to begin the season with, I guess, or the episode with, that I thought were very questionable. I thought things like Daemon and the gold cloaks was very odd because it's never the way I personally pictured that going on. I thought the gold cloaks were more like they were still doing their jobs, they were kind of patrolling, but they were much more harsh. Where if they saw a crime going on, it wasn't one of those things where they would just throw them in prison and kind of await justice. They would take things in their own hands, and that's kind of how I saw it. Now, the way they portrayed it felt very similar to like Nazi times, where kind of they went out searching for people and taking people like off the streets and out of their houses, and kind of it just felt very odd to me. And I think the scene afterwards on that helped it a bit because we know that yes, these all were actual criminals. It makes it a bit more justified for Daemon, where he can, it makes a bit more sense. But it's the way that it was shot. It felt very off. And I know we get a couple things where these people are like, yeah, this guy's a thief, or they're kind of yelling and all, but a lot of it just felt like they were taking random civilians and just beating the shit out of them. So I don't know how you guys felt about that either. But that was something that I thought was very odd to me, the way that was shot. I also, again, and this is something that I think they fixed by the end of the episode. I was very scared about Daemon Targaryen's character in the first, like, quarter of the episode, because they kind of made him out to seem like just a straight up villain. Like he was just kind of an asshole. He really didn't have a personality or anything like that. I'm happy that they retconned that. But that was something that did kind of worry me on that part of it. Another thing I wanted to talk about when it comes to characters, like I mentioned earlier, Rhaenys and Corlys Velaryon really didn't get much screen time. Rhaenys, I think, has one scene where she's actually talking, which I thought was weird. I like Rhaenys so far, even in the line she's given. She kind of feels like an Olenna Tyrell type character. So I think that was a pretty good idea. Corlys Velaryon, in the lines he did get and the scenes he did get, I think was very good. So I hope we get to see more of them in the coming episodes. Hopefully we should. They're very important characters when it comes to the Dance with Dragons. But those are two characters I want to see more from. Kristen Cole, I didn't really expect to see much from him in episode 1, if at all. I wasn't even sure we were going to see him in episode 1, but we will see a lot more of him in episode 2. So we'll talk about more of him in the preview for episode 2, and also then when we review it. And then another thing that I thought was a bit interesting is the idea that they didn't really stay in the past very long. I expected them to build up how Viserys becomes king a bit more, because I think it's an integral point of the Dance Dragons, and it's a really good foreshadowing time where Jaehaerys is dying and he's getting into his older age and he needs a successor, and we don't know who that's going to be. The main two people in line were going to be Rhaenys and then Viserys. I thought they were going to play on that a little bit more because it's very important, and it parallels a lot of what Rhaenyra's story is going to be. So I was a little disappointed we didn't get more of that. We really got like maybe a minute and a half focusing on that time period, which I thought was kind of disappointing. One thing I really hope is that we get a Balerion like flashback. It'd be really cool to see the Black Dread at some point. Maybe we get an Aegon the Conqueror flashback. But that is kind of my review for episode 1. I thought it was very good overall. I thought there wasn't a whole lot you could do here to make it like a big shocks, big surprises, because a lot of that's going to come towards the middle to the end of season 1. But I think they did a very good job of establishing our main characters, the characters we needed to get there. And I think what they were going for in episode 1 is they didn't want to overwhelm the viewer. They didn't want to add in all these different characters, have a bunch of things going on. They wanted to focus on kind of our main 5-6 characters and develop them the most they could, and then start to introduce more of these other characters and bring them in and develop them more as people. So I'm excited for episode 2. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.
If you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention.